The ISS Valkyrie drifted in the cold silence of deep space, her engines on idle. Captain Mara Vance sat in the command chair, a mug of cold coffee in her hand, her eyes scanning the endless black beyond the viewport. Out here there was no sunrise, no sunset, just darkness. Darkness, and the occasional call for help. The call came in suddenly. It wasn't a neat, official transmission, it was a scream. The comms officer, Lieutenant Hale, jumped at the sound. His console crackled with static. Then a voice came through, high, panicked, and human. "If anyone can hear me, please." A harsh metallic shriek drowned the words. "They've got her." A woman's scream tore through the channel. Oh, it was raw, unfiltered agony. Hale's fingers flew over the controls. Locking onto the source. Research vessel Solace. Civilian registry. Nearest jump point, 3 hours from here. Mara set down her coffee, put it on main. The bridge filled with the sound of chaos. There was no visual feed, only the grainy, jagged audio, heavy breathing, the scrape of metal, and something else. Something alien. A second voice. Female came through. Her words were broken, barely intelligible. "Don't let them. Take it from me." Then came a sound no one aboard the Valkyrie would forget, a scream that went on far too long. It wasn't just pain, it was unraveling, kind of scream that stripped a soul down to the bone. The audio cut, the bridge was silent. Even the hum of the ship's systems felt distant. Hale swallowed. "Captain, I've got an ID." The voice belongs to Dr. Elara Myles, xenobiologist. She's worked on first contact research for the League. Her ship's registered as missing, presumed lost 2 months ago. Mara knew the name. Elara Myles was brilliant, stubborn, and not the type to scream for help. Something terrible had broken her. "Source location?" Mara asked. Hale's eyes flicked across his screen. "It's inside the Orpheus Rift. And Captain, it's moving." 3 hours later, the Valkyrie slid out of jump. The Orpheus Rift was a region of twisted space, its stars bent into strange shifting patterns. No sane pilot lingered here. The Solace appeared on sensors, floating dead. No life signs. No running lights. Mara stood behind the helm, arms folded. Put her on visual. The view screen flickered to life, showing a dark, skeletal ship. Hull was scored with deep, black grooves, like something had carved into the metal. Parts of it were still glowing faintly, as if it had been burned from the inside. "Not good," muttered Chief Engineer Oren. Then Hale stiffened. "Captain, I'm getting a life sign." Heads turned. "Where?" Hale's voice was tight, from the Solace. "One human, faint. No movement." Mara's brows knit. Could be a suit malfunction. Could be a trap. Oren shook his head. "We just scanned her. That ship was empty a second ago." Hale's voice sharpened. "Captain, you're not going to believe this. The life sign appeared exactly 37 minutes after her heart stopped." Mara turned slowly toward him. "Repeat that." Hale tapped his console. "We've got the Solace's internal logs. Dr. Myles' vitals flatlined 37 minutes ago. Now they're normal. Perfectly normal. Heart rate steady. Oxygen saturation perfect, like she never died." No one spoke. Inside the alien ship, a grainy video file began to play on Hale's console. It was short, only 13 seconds long. But no one could look away. The feed showed a chamber unlike anything human-made. The walls were smooth, black metal, covered in shifting symbols that pulsed with faint light. Strange needle-like tools hung from the ceiling on jointed arms. Moving with slow, deliberate precision, in the center of the room was a human form. Dr. Elara Myles, strapped to a chair made of what looked like glass. Her head hung forward, hair hiding her face. One of the alien tools moved toward her. It didn't pierce skin. It passed through it, as though her body wasn't entirely solid. She convulsed violently. The symbols on the walls flared bright white. Then the feed ended. "They weren't killing her," Oren muttered. "They were doing something else." Hale looked pale. "I don't know what's worse, that she was dead, or that she came back." Mara's mind worked through the possibilities. Rescuing her could mean saving a valuable scientist. It could also mean inviting whatever did this onto her ship. Before she could decide, Hale spoke again. "Captain." "A transmission? From the Solace?" Ali shook his head slowly. "No, from something else. Something bigger." On the screen, another ship slid out from the rift's shadow. It was massive, easily 10 times the Valkyrie's size. Its hull shimmered like it was made of liquid metal, shifting colors in slow waves. There were no engines visible, no weapons they could identify. But the way it moved suggested power beyond anything human. Ships possessed, it was heading straight for them. Tension on the bridge, the crew stared at the alien vessel. No one dared to breathe too loud. Hale's console lit up again. "They're hailing us." No audio, no visual, just data packets. "I think it's coordinates." Mara leaned over. "Where do they lead?" "To the Solace," Hale said. Dr. Myles. The implication hung in the air. The alien ship was telling them to go get her. The choice Mara paced the bridge. It could be leading us into a trap. It could be using her as bait, or encountered. Or maybe she's the only reason they haven't destroyed us already? Hale added quietly, "Captain, if they can bring someone back from the dead, we need to know how. That's humanity's survival right there." Mara stopped pacing, looked out at the alien ship, looked back at her crew. She didn't like mysteries, and she hated being pushed into a corner. "Prep the boarding team," she said finally. "If Dr. Elara Myles is alive, we're bringing her home." The crew moved quickly, tension thick in the air. The Valkyrie shuttle bay lit up with cold white light as a boarding craft powered up. Hale's voice came over the comm. "Captain, we've got movement. The alien ship is clearing a path." As the boarding team suited up, the alien vessel shifted. Sections of its hull peeled open like petals of a flower, revealing an inner structure, a glowing corridor of light stretching toward the Solace. Mara's voice was calm, but her heart pounded. "Looks like they're rolling out the welcome mat," Oren muttered. "Welcome mat or guillotine." The boarding craft launched, its engines flaring bright against the rift's darkness. From the bridge, with the Mincham heading toward the dead research vessel and whatever waited inside. The alien ship loomed in the background, silent and watching, somewhere in its shadow. A human heart that had stopped beating 37 minutes ago was now beating strong. And no one aboard the Valkyrie knew why. The Valkyrie's boarding craft drifted toward the silent hulk of the Solace. From the bridge, Captain Mara Vance watched, every meter tick away on the nav display. She didn't like it approaching a ship that had been declared dead twice in less than an hour. Over the comm, Lieutenant Cade, leader of the boarding team, reported in. "Docking clamps engaged. Atmosphere's thin but stable. We're going in." Mara's fingers drummed against the armrest. "Keep comes open at all times. You see anything move that's not wearing a human face, you call it out before shooting." Cade chuckled, short, nervous. "Copy that, Captain." The Solace's airlock doors opened with a grinding moan, like the ship itself was reluctant to let them in. The boarding lights from the Valkyrie's craft pierced the darkness, revealing corridors coated in a thin, crystalline film. Every footstep crunched. "Looks like frost," said Corporal Juno, her voice low. "But it's warm in here." As they moved deeper, faint symbols glimmered on the walls, the same style seen in the alien chamber from the earlier feed. The symbols shifted subtly when light passed over them, like they were alive. They reached the medical bay. The door slid open with a hiss, and there she was, Dr. Elara Myles. She stood barefoot on the cold floor, head slightly tilted, eyes half closed. She was wearing the same torn prison-style tunic seen in the alien footage, but there were no wounds, no burns, no signs of the agony her screams had promised. Dr. Cade asked, her eyes opened slowly. They were different. The pupils seemed sharper, almost crystalline. She studied each of them in silence, then spoke in a calm, even voice. "You came." The walk back, they escorted her back toward the boarding craft. She didn't stumble, didn't shiver, didn't seem confused about where she was. The only sound she made was the soft padding of bare feet on the deck. When they passed one of the glimmering wall symbols, it flared brightly for an instant. Elara looked at it, but didn't slow down. Cade noticed. "You know what those are, Doc?" She didn't answer. Back on the Valkyrie, the moment Elara stepped onto the ship, the Valkyrie's internal sensors went wild. The medical bay reported her vitals were perfect, better than perfect. Heart rate steady, oxygenation flawless. No scars, no signs of malnutrition. Oren stood beside the scanner, frowning at the readouts. "This is impossible. You've been tortured for hours. Your body should be wrecked. But these readings, they're like you're fresh out of stasis." Elara sat on the bed, hands folded in her lap. "I remember both deaths," she said softly. The room went silent. Mara stepped closer. "You died more than once." Lara's gaze drifted. "Yes, the first time was short. The second time, longer. But they were not killing me. They were measuring me." "Measuring what?" Oren asked. She looked straight into Mara's eyes. How long a human can hold on to themselves after the body is gone. Memory shards. When she closed her eyes, images flickered in her mind. The alien chamber, the metallic arms, the pulsing walls. But the strongest memory wasn't pain. It was weightlessness, being nowhere, no body, no time. "I could see them," she said. "Not with eyes. They weren't solid like we are. They were possibilities." Mara crossed her arms. "You're not making sense." Elara gave a faint smile. "Neither do they." The aliens marked while speaking with her. The crew noticed something else. The ship's AI had begun detecting an unknown energy field radiating from Elara. It pulsed faintly, like a slow heartbeat, and matched no known frequency. When Mara asked about it, Elara shook her head. "That's not from me. That's from where I've been." The rift Sturshail interrupted the meeting from the bridge. "Captain, the alien ship's moving. It's circling us." On the view screen, the massive liquid metal vessel glided silently. Around the Valkyrie, didn't aim weapons, didn't broadcast threats, just moved as if studying them. Then, without warning, a thin beam of light shot from the alien ship to the Valkyrie's hull. "It's scanning us," Oren said. Elara stood suddenly, her eyes narrowing. "No, it's scanning me." The corridor appears, the Valkyrie's sensors lit up. An energy spike rippled from the alien beam, and suddenly a new object appeared on the scanners. A long, narrow structure floating just outside visual range. It hadn't been there before. Mara frowned. "What is that?" Hale zoomed the display. The image resolved into a corridor, a colossal tunnel of alien metal suspended in space. Its surface was covered in glowing glyphs, shifting like water. Elara spoke quietly. "It wasn't here before. They want me to go inside?" Decision point. Mara stared at her. "And how exactly do you know that?" "I can feel it," Elara replied, "the same way I felt their tools moving through me." "It's not words, it's intention," Oren muttered. "Captain, this is insane. That thing could crush us like an ant." Hale, still watching the alien ship, added, "Or maybe it's a door. And she's the key." Mara's jaw tightened. "We're not walking into a death trap, because a half-cryptic science officer says she feels like it." But Elara didn't look intimidated. "If you don't take me in there, they'll come for me. When they do, they'll take all of you too." Before Mara could reply, the Valkyrie shook violently. The alien ship had moved closer, close enough to fill the entire viewport. Then, as the crew watched, part of its hull unfolded, revealing a perfect copy of the corridor they'd just scanned. Only this time, it was attached directly to the Valkyrie, A deep vibration rolled through the deck plates. As if the ship itself was being pulled towards something beyond its understanding, Elara's voice was calm, almost serene. "They've opened the way." Valkyrie's crew stood frozen on the bridge, watching the impossible. The alien ship had connected itself to them. No sound, no warning. Just a perfect, gleaming corridor stretching from its hull to the Valkyrie's airlock. It wasn't a docking tube. It was a construct. The walls rippled faintly, like liquid metal, and alien glyphs pulsed in slow, hypnotic patterns. The symbols weren't random. They shifted in a rhythm that almost felt like breathing. A deep hum vibrated through the ship. It wasn't coming from the engines. It was inside their bones. The crew felt it before they heard it. A low, steady note that made their teeth ache and their stomachs twist. Then the hum changed. Inviting. Elara Myles stood at the viewport, her bare feet steady against the deck. She tilted her head, listening to something no one else could hear. "They're asking me to come," she said softly. Mara Vance stepped closer. "How do you know?" "I remember this sound," Elara replied. "It's the same tone I heard when I wasn't in my body. It's the same tone that brought me back." The bridge went quiet. Oren, the chief engineer, finally broke it. "Captain, we should cut that thing loose. Burn out of here while we still can." Hale, the comms officer, shook his head. "If we break the connection, they might see it as hostile." "Good," Oren muttered. "Let's be hostile." Mara looked at Elara. "You're telling me you want to walk into that thing?" Elara's eyes stayed locked on the shifting corridor. "I think if I don't, they'll come in here instead, and Captain." She turned her gaze to Mara. "You don't want them in here." Boarding the corridor, Mara weighed her options. She didn't like either one. But Elara was right. Whatever these aliens were, they'd already breached death itself to return her. They could breach a steel hull without trying. "Fine," Mara said. "We go in. Small team. Full armor." The boarding squad assembled. Quickly, Mara herself, Elara, Cade, Juno, and Hale. Oren stayed behind to monitor systems. The airlock opened with a hiss. The alien corridor waited, humming faintly. The first step inside was like stepping into another world. The floor was smooth, but not slippery, warm under their boots. The walls curved gently, alive with patterns of light that seemed to ripple away. From Elara, as she walked, Juno tapped her helmet display. "Captain, I'm getting movement readings. There's nothing here." Elara's voice was calm. "It's because you can't see them yet." The corridor's secrets. As they moved deeper, the lighting changed. The glyphs began to glow. Brighter, gold, green, violet, in shifting combinations. Cade glanced at Elara. "You understand any of this?" "Not with words," she said. "But they're reacting to me, like a door opening." The further they went, the more. The corridor seemed to stretch. The Valkyrie's hull should have been just behind them, but when Cade looked back, the entrance was gone. Only the endless corridor remained. Captain Hale said quietly, "I think we're not in our space anymore." First contact, sort of a faint shimmer appeared ahead, like heat waves rising from asphalt. Slowly, the shimmer resolved into shapes, tall, thin figures, each encased in a kind of translucent shell. They stood perfectly still, but their presence was overwhelming. They weren't blocking the path. They were waiting. Juno raised her rifle slightly. "You seeing this?" Elara stepped forward before Mara could stop her. The figures didn't move, but the glyphs on the walls flared in response. "They're not here to hurt us," Elara said. "Not yet." Pulse without warning. The corridor's hum deepened into a resonant pulse. It hit them like a physical wave. Juno stumbled. Hale clutched his head. Mara felt her heart stutter in her chest. Just for a moment, as if the pulse had reached in and squeezed it. Elara didn't flinch. "They're measuring us," she said simply. Cade's voice was tight. "Measuring what exactly?" Elara looked back at him. "How much of yourself you can hold on to when they take the rest away." The doorway, the corridor, ended abruptly in a black archway. It wasn't open space. It was a void. No stars. No light, nothing, just Absence. The figures melted back into the walls, vanishing without a sound. Elara turned to Mara. This is it. They want me to go through. Mara shook her head. We all go, or no one goes. Elara's lips curved. Faintly. If you come through, you might not come back, Juno muttered. Captain, I'm voting for not going through. Mara stood silent, weighing the choice. Behind them, the corridor shifted. The way back was no longer visible, a voice deep, layered and utterly alien, filled the corridor. It didn't come from speakers. It came from inside their skulls. Come. The word wasn't in English. But every mind heard it clearly. Elara stepped forward, her bare feet just inches from the void. The glyphs on the walls blazed brighter than ever. Then, without warning, she stepped in. The darkness swallowed her whole, and the corridor began to pull the rest of them in. After her, the darkness wasn't empty. It was alive. The instant Elara stepped into the void, something vast and cold wrapped around her mind. Not like hands, more like an ocean current, pulling her in every direction at once. Her body felt weightless. Her eyes saw nothing, but her mind was full. She was back in her old research lab on Luna Station. Everything was normal. The hum of equipment, the scent of sterile air, the faint glow of Earth through the VIEWPORT. Except her co-workers weren't moving. Not frozen like statues, but stretched, like time itself was pulling them apart. Faces blurred, arms lengthened, eyes melted into shimmering pools of color. She reached for the cum panel, but her hand wasn't there. In its place was something long, jointed, and translucent. It flexed once, shimmering under the lab lights. This is you. The voice wasn't human. It was everywhere at once, inside her skull, behind her eyes, vibrating in her bones. Before you were made small, her heart pounded. She wanted to speak, to demand answers, but her mouth didn't work. There were no lips to move. The lab around her dissolved into a starfield. She was floating, no, falling through constellations she didn't recognize. One of the stars pulsed 3 times. The sound, a deep, thrumming heartbeat rattled through her until she couldn't tell if it was hers or someone else's. Meanwhile, the Valkyrie, Mara, Juno, Cade, and Hale didn't see what Elara saw. To them, Hale simply stepped forward and vanished. Then the corridor itself had turned into a river of black light, dragging them toward the void. Reverse thrusters, Cade shouted, digging his boots into the floor. But there was nothing to grip. The floor was gone. The blackness under their feet rippled like liquid glass, and their bodies slid toward the opening no matter how hard. They fought. Mara fired her magnetic grapple into the corridor wall. It stuck for 2 seconds, then the wall itself melted away, glyphs streaming into the void like dust in the wind. Captain? Juno yelled. We're losing the corridor. And then it took them back to Elara, the first memory. Deepens the starfield, twisted into a world she had never seen. Towering obsidian spires rose into a blood-orange sky. Rivers of light, real light, liquid and flowing, cut across the black plains. Figures moved along the banks, tall, thin, and impossibly graceful. Their bodies shimmered between solid and translucent. They were the same species she'd glimpsed in the corridor. But here, they weren't sealed in stasis. They were alive. Elara realized the perspective was wrong. She wasn't standing among them. She was one of them. Before the fall, the voice said, before you were given form and limits, she wanted to scream, I'm human. But the voice pressed deeper, flooding her with images, alien ships shattered in orbit, cities crumbling under waves of darkness, and an overwhelming sense of loss so heavy it made her chest ache. You carry us? The meaning hit her like a blow. They weren't showing her a random vision. They were telling her she was connected to them, not metaphorically, but literally. The crew's arrival, when Mara and the others tumbled out of the void, they landed hard. Not on metal, on warm, polished stone. They were standing on a massive platform in the middle of the same alien city Elara was seeing. Except for them, it wasn't a memory. The air was thick and warm, carrying the scent of something sweet and electric. Above them, the orange sky boiled slowly, like it was alive. Elara, Mara called, scanning the crowd. But there was no crowd. The city was silent. No, not silent. There was a sound. Faint, but growing louder. A heartbeat reunion. And a change they found Elara standing at the edge of the platform, staring into the glowing river below. She was barefoot again, her hair unbound, her torn prison tunic now clean, and seamless, as if it had been remade. Elara, Mara said carefully, "Are you okay?" Elara turned slowly. Her eyes glowed faintly gold. "They're showing me," she said. "Showing me what we were, what I was." Cade frowned. "What you were. You're human." She smiled. Not in a comforting way? Maybe not entirely. Pulse returns to the ground shook as the same deep pulse they'd heard in the corridor rolled through the city. Lights in the spires flared in time with it, and the glowing river surged higher. Elara looked at the others. "They say the next part will hurt." Juno tightened her grip on her rifle. Define hurt, before Elara could answer. The river erupted upward, a column of light that engulfed them all, and the city vanished. Hook for part 5 when their vision cleared. They were no longer standing together. Mara was alone in a dark chamber, surrounded by alien tools that seemed to shift when she looked at them. Cade stood knee-deep in black water, its whispers circling him. Juno was suspended in midair, wrapped in bands of living light, and Elara was staring into the face of something she knew had killed her before. The voice returned calm and cold. "Let us see what you will give up to survive." The light was gone. So was the city. When their vision returned, the crew of the Valkyrie were no longer together. The alien presence had scattered them like pieces on a board, each trapped in their own reality, but the test had already begun. Captain Mara Vance stood alone in a dark, circular chamber. The air smelled metallic and stale. Alien tools hung from the walls, if they could be called tools at all. Some looked like blades, others like instruments for music, and some shifted shapes whenever she looked directly at them. A single beam of white light fell from the ceiling, illuminating a table in the center of the room. On it lay her old sidearm, and a small object wrapped in blood-stained cloth. Her chest tightened. She knew that shape. She'd held it once before. The cloth unwrapped itself, revealing a human hand, pale, lifeless. A child's hand. She staggered back, heart pounding. "This isn't real," she whispered. "It is the weight you carry," the alien voice said. "To survive, you must let it go." Mara clenched her jaw. Not happening. The light dimmed and the walls began to close in. Cade's trial elsewhere. Cade found himself standing knee-deep in thick black water that clung to his legs like tar. The surface reflected no light. A faint whisper circled him, too low to understand at first. Then the words sharpened. "You left them behind." His pulse spiked. "I didn't have a choice." "You did." Shapes began rising from the water, human shapes. Crew members he'd served with years ago, faces pale, eyes wide, all of them dead. All of them blaming him. Cade raised his rifle, but when he fired, the rounds vanished into the water without a splash. The voices grew louder. "Drown with us." The water surged higher. Juno's trial Juno dangled in midair, wrapped in bands of living light that pulsed like veins. The strands were warm, almost gentle, but every time she moved, they tightened. A figure appeared below her. Not alien, human. It was her brother, the one she'd watched die during the siege on Titan. "Juno," he said softly, "you can come home now. Just stop fighting." She strained against the bands. "You're not real." The figure's eyes glowed faintly gold. "I am if you want me to be." The bands loosened slightly, inviting her to fall. Elara's trial. Elara stood in a small chamber lined with reflective walls. Each surface showed a different version of herself. One wore her xenobiologist's uniform. One wore the prison tunic. One looked alien tall, translucent, eyes like molten metal. The alien version stepped forward from the reflection. "You are one of us. You always were. Accept it." Elara shook her head. "I'm human." The alien Elara tilted her head. "Then why did you survive?" Memories flashed, the torture, the moment of death, the darkness, and the return. No human should have endured that. Her reflection smiled. You were never theirs to break. Meanwhile, the Watchers somewhere beyond the trials. Unseen by human eyes, tall alien figures observed each test. Their forms flickered between solid and translucent, as if reality couldn't decide what they truly were. They struggle, one said. They learn, another replied. The one called Elara, she remembers. Breaking Point Mara's chamber walls were now inches from her face. The hand on the table twitched, and she realized it wasn't a child's hand anymore. It was hers. The voice returned. Let it go, or you will vanish here. Mara gritted her teeth, drew her sidearm, and fired at the ceiling. The beam of light shattered into thousands of shards, slicing the walls apart. The chamber dissolved into darkness. Cade's water was at his chest. The faces around him grinned with teeth too sharp to be human. He shut his eyes, took a deep breath, and dove straight down. Instead of drowning, he fell through the water and landed on solid stone. Gasping for breath, Juno stopped pulling at the bands. Instead, she relaxed, letting them wrap her tighter, and then they simply dissolved, dropping her to the ground. Her brother was gone. Elara stepped closer to her alien reflection. If I accept you, she said slowly, do I lose myself? The reflection smiled. You gain what you were meant to be. Elara reached out, and the chamber vanished. The return one by one. They were back together, standing in a vast open hall, unlike anything they'd seen before. Above them, an enormous sphere of light pulsed slowly, each beat shaking the air. Around it, alien figures hovered in silent observation. You have endured, the voice said, but the test is not over.
Ow!
Mara raised an eyebrow. What was that supposed to prove? That you can survive what you fear most. Now, you will. Survive what you cannot understand. The hall's floor split open beneath them. The crew plummeted into blinding light. For a moment, Mara thought she saw Earth far below, but it was twisted, wrong, with alien structures. Rising from the oceans, and then they hit the ground, but it wasn't the ground they knew. It was alive. The crew hit the ground hard. Only, it wasn't ground. It moved under them, soft and warm like muscle, pulsing gently as if breathing. The surface was covered in a slick, translucent layer that flexed when they stepped on it. Somewhere deep below, something enormous shifted. Captain Mara Vance forced herself to her feet. Her boots sank half an inch into the surface, which rippled like water under tension. This isn't rock, Juno said, crouching down. She pressed her palm to it. It's alive. A low vibration traveled up through their bodies, like the hum of a giant heartbeat. Cade scanned the horizon. That heartbeat, it's everywhere. All around them stretched a rolling landscape of hills and valleys, but nothing here looked natural. The hills pulsed. The valleys exhaled faint mist that smelled faintly metallic. Massive tendrils. As thick as trees rose in the distance, swaying slowly against a copper-colored sky. Then the ground twitched. Not a tremor. Not a quake. It was a deliberate reaction. Something far larger than them knew they were here. Signs of the unseen Elara stared at the surface beneath her feet. The thin, translucent membrane revealed flashes of something below. Dark fluids flowing through thick vessels, like blood in colossal veins. This isn't just alive, she said softly. It's one organism.
Oh.
The whole landscape. Mara gritted her teeth. Then where the hell are we standing? On its back, inside it. Before anyone could answer, a deep sound rolled through the air. Not quite a roar, not quite a voice. It was a resonance that made the bones in their skulls ache. Welcome. The word didn't come from one place. It came from everywhere. The first movement, the ground shifted again, harder this time. A fissure opened a few meters away, spilling out a stream of pale, luminous liquid. It hissed as it touched the air, sending steam curling upward. Juno took a cautious step forward. The ground under her heels swelled suddenly, knocking her off balance. Don't move, Mara barked. They froze. The fissure widened, and something rose from it. At first, it looked like a pillar, smooth and wet, glistening in the strange light. But then it bent in the middle, and a series of circular openings slid open along its length, revealing rows of dark, wet eyes. It studied them silently. The memory exchanged without warning, Mara's mind filled with images that weren't hers. A vast alien ocean filled with floating towers, skies torn open by wormholes, beings made of light drifting in endless night. She staggered. "It's talking to me." Elara's voice trembled. Talking, showing. Each of them was hit with visions, battles fought in space with weapons beyond comprehension, civilizations rising and falling, and finally, a cold void swallowing stars. "We live where others die," the presence said. "Now you live where we live." The feeding grounds, the pillar thing retreated into the fissure. But the surface around them began to shift. Cade spotted movement in the distance. Dozens of long, segmented shapes slithering across the living ground toward them. Each one ended in a spiked, jagged maw that opened and closed as it moved. "They're not here to talk," he muttered, raising his rifle. "No," Elara said quickly. "This organism, it feeds." The first of the creatures surged forward, half its body plunging beneath the surface and re-emerging closer. Like a predator swimming underwater, escaped through the veins. A jagged ridge split open beside them, revealing a dark tunnel lined with pulsating walls. It was slick, but there was enough space to move single file. "Either we run into that thing's mouth," Mara said, "or into its veins." No one argued. They plunged into the tunnel, the walls contracting slightly around them as if the organism was pulling them deeper. The air was thick and warm. Somewhere ahead, a faint golden glow beckoned. Behind them, slithering creatures followed, their bodies scraping against the tunnel walls, their clicking jaws echoing in the darkness. Heart of the world, the tunnel widened abruptly into a massive chamber. At the center floated a giant sphere of translucent tissue, glowing with a rhythmic pulse. Thick tendrils connected it to the walls, each one twitching in time with the glow. "That's it," Elara whispered. "It's heart." Mara didn't like the way the glow seemed to look at them. Then the voice returned, deeper now. "To leave, you must give." "Give what?" Cade demanded. "A piece of yourself." The choice, the heart pulsed faster. Images slammed into their minds again, this time. Each vision was personal. Mara saw her home on Earth. Cade saw his sister. Yes. Juno saw the oceans of Titan. Elara saw the day she died. "Give it," the voice demanded. Elara stepped forward slowly. "It wants a memory. Something we can't get back." "If we give it that," Mara said sharply, "we might not be the same person afterward." The slithering predators were almost at the chamber's edge. They had seconds to decide. Mara's hand hovered over the glowing heart. Her pulse matched its rhythm. She could feel it pulling at her mind. And then without warning, the heart spoke again. Or, "Give another life." The heart's glow deepened into a blood-red pulse. It throbbed in slow, heavy beats, each one echoing in their bones around them. The predators inched closer, their segmented bodies scraping the chamber floor, their snapping jaws dripping with viscous strands. The voice came again, wrapping itself around their minds. "Give me a memory, or give me a life." Captain Mara Vance's jaw tightened. She scanned her crew. Juno's breathing was fast and shallow. Cade's knuckles were white around his rifle. Elara's eyes were fixed on the heart, her pupils wide. "What happens if we say no?" Mara asked, even though she already knew. The heart's beat quickened. The predators hissed. "Then I take everything." The walls pulsed inward slightly as though the organism was tightening its grip. The temperature climbed. The air was thick and damp, tasting faintly of copper. Cade took a step toward the heart. "If it's a memory, fine. Take mine. Take no." Elara's voice cut through him like a blade. "You don't understand. It's not just any memory. It's your strongest one. It's the one that defines you." The heart pulsed brighter. Almost hungrily, Elara's secret. Mara turned to Elara. "You've been here before, haven't you?" Elara hesitated. "Not here, but something like it. Years ago on Vega Station, We studied an organism that fed on mental imprints. People lost their most important memories, and afterward, they were different, like a part of them was hollowed out. Cade swore under his breath. So this thing's not just asking for payment, it's asking to rewrite who we are. Predators took another step forward, their movement perfectly synchronized, as though waiting for the heart's signal. The temptation, the voice softened. A memory can be replaced, a life cannot. Choose quickly. Juno's eyes flicked toward the predators. We don't have time. One of us gives it something or we all die here. The chamber's walls began to contract rhythmically, pushing them closer toward the glowing sphere. Elara whispered, "It's bluffing." The heart's glow flared so brightly that for a second, they couldn't see. The bargain turns dark. When their vision cleared, a figure stood between them and the heart. A human. Her skin was pale, her prison tunic torn. Her bare feet dripped with the luminous fluid from the fissures outside. It was Elara, but Elara was right there beside Mara. The double smiled faintly, on what it gave back the last time someone paid the price. Realization hit Mara like a punch. That's what it made when it took you. The false Elara's eyes glowed faintly. She's alive because someone else gave up their life. I am the replacement. The crew divides. Cade's voice was low and dangerous. If it'll take a life, it doesn't have to be ours. Juno's head snapped toward him. You mean bait? Sacrifice someone else? Cade didn't answer. The heart pulsed faster, feeding on their fear. One choice. Now, the predators hissed in unison, claws scraping. Mara's decision. Mara knew they were out of time. She had seconds. None of us dies here today, she said. Then she turned and shoved Elara forward. Elara stumbled toward the heart, shock flashing in her eyes. But before anyone could shout, she stopped. No, she whispered. I know what it wants. I'll give it more than a memory. The unthinkable offer. Elara stepped right up to the sphere, pressing her hands. Against its pulsing surface, the glow bled into her skin, up her arms, into her eyes. Her voice echoed unnaturally as she spoke. Take my death, all of them. Every time I've died. Every time I will die. I want to feed on that. The heart went still. Then it screamed, not with sound, but with a shockwave that rattled their bones and made the predators recoil. The walls convulsed. The chamber's glow dimmed to a sickly green. The escape window run, Mara shouted. They sprinted for the tunnel as the predators scattered in confusion. Behind them, the heart's glow twisted and flickered erratically, tendrils tearing free. From the walls, the tunnel walls convulsed, trying to close, but they forced their way through, slipping and sliding in the slick, pulsing passage at the far end. A faint opening shone pale daylight. They burst through into the alien landscape again, collapsing onto the still-breathing ground. But something was wrong. The price they didn't see. Elara stood a few feet away, breathing hard. She looked normal, no wounds, no burns. But when Mara met her gaze, Elara's eyes were blank, not empty. Unfamiliar. She tilted her head, studying Mara as if seeing her for the first time. Who are you? Elara asked, before Mara could answer. The ground beneath them shuddered violently, and a massive shadow swept over the sky. They looked up and saw the real heart of the organism rising from the horizon, towering miles high, the chamber they'd been in. It was only a fragment. The ground wasn't just trembling, it was breathing faster. Beneath the crew's boots, the surface rose and fell in shallow waves, each one stronger than the last. Then, from the horizon, the shadow took shape. It wasn't a ship, it wasn't a building, it was alive. The heart they'd escaped from was the size of a room. The thing rising before them was the size of a city. Its surface glistened like wet obsidian, layered with shifting plates that pulsed faintly. Dozens, no, hundreds of massive tendrils unfurled from its sides, burrowing into the alien ground for miles in every direction. The sky above warped, as if reality itself bent around its shape. The air pressure dropped so suddenly that Mara's ears popped. Juno stared wide-eyed. That wasn't the heart. That was a capillary. The Titan's core. Mara forced herself to think. Then this is the organism's brain. A booming voice, the same one from inside the chamber, rolled across the alien plane so deep it made their teeth ache. You escaped the trial, but the debt remains. The ground between them and the Titan split open, revealing a fissure hundreds of meters deep. From within came the faint, unmistakable screams of countless voices, human and alien alike. Elara flinched, her blank eyes scanning the crew. I know them. I don't know how, but I know every single one of them. The debt. Mara shouted toward the Titan. We gave you what you wanted. She paid the price. The voice rumbled in reply. You gave me a fraction, but her deaths will take time to ripen. Cade gritted his teeth. We're not sticking around for you to collect. A terrifying realization. Juno pointed upward. In the distance, tiny dark shapes detached from the Titan and began drifting toward them. Not ships, not animals, pieces of it, living shards, each the size of a dropship. Covered in writhing tendrils and serrated limbs, were descending like a swarm. Elara whispered, They're not here to kill us. They're here to bring us back. The plan. Mara's mind raced. Their shuttle was kilometers away across uneven ground that shifted underfoot. There was no way to outrun the swarm unless... She turned to Elara. You said it feeds on death. Can it be poisoned? Elara tilted her head, thinking slowly, like a computer sorting corrupted files. Maybe if it consumes something it can't process. Something alive, but wrong. Mara's gaze fell on the replacement Elara, the false one they'd left behind in the chamber. Only she was standing right behind them, silent and still. The replacement Elara smiled faintly. I knew you'd come back for me. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were cold. Mara stepped forward. You want freedom? Help us end it. Let it consume you instead. The double's smile widened. And why would I do that? 'Cause Mara said quietly, if it takes you, there won't be anything left to bring back. The sacrifice. The replacement Elara studied them for a moment, then looked at the swarm. She sighed. Fine, but not for you. For her? She glanced at the real Elara, the one who no longer remembered her own crew. The double began to walk toward the fissure, her bare feet leaving glowing prints on the breathing ground. The swarm changed course instantly, converging on her. Feeding the moment the first shard reached her, it latched on. The double didn't scream, she laughed. The swarm wrapped around her, tendrils piercing, pulling her into the fissure. The Titan's glow shifted from blood red to a pale, flickering white dot. The ground convulsed violently. In the distance, several of the Titan's tendrils tore free from the soil, writhing like wounded serpents. What have you given me? Mara shouted. Something you can't digest. The Titan let out a sound that wasn't just noise, it was pressure, pain, and fury all at once. The air shook, the escape go. Mara yelled. They sprinted across the unstable terrain, leaping over cracks and fissures as the ground buckled. The Titan was collapsing inward, huge sections of its body liquefying and sinking into the earth. Behind them, the swarm scattered, retreating toward the dying giant. When they reached the shuttle, Mara didn't look back. She shoved the engines to full burn, lifting them high above the plane. The aftermath from orbit, they could see it, the Titan curling in on itself, its glow fading like a dying ember. Inside the shuttle, silence hung heavy. Elara sat in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, eyes distant. She spoke at last. I think I remember something. Just one thing. Mara looked at her sharply. What is it? Elara's gaze met hers. You told me once. Humans don't run from monsters. We make them regret finding us. The Titan's light finally winked out, and far beyond it. In the blackness of space, something else moved, bigger, watching.